Hello everyone and welcome to the UK Gaming Network podcast. I'm Zoidberg, here to bring you another weekly dose of gaming discussion and opinion. This week we've been playing Monster Energy Supercross 3, the latest off-road biking game from Italian developer Milestone. This is a developer who have specialised in the racing genre, dating all the way back to Squadricourse Alfa Romeo on the PS2, but their output has never really got above the solid, if forgettable, variety. Supercross 3 is another typically well-made game, with good graphics, a nice sense of speed, and tricky to master handling. But there's little here that's going to appeal to anyone who's not already a fan of the AMA Championship. All of the game's tracks are housed within stadiums, and look incredibly similar to one another, and the option to build your own in the track editor doesn't really eradicate this. If you've played either of the previous games, then there's nothing here that's different beyond the inclusion of female riders and the chance to sign for one of the official teams in the career mode. We've not experienced any of the physics glitches from previous games either, but that's actually a little disappointing as they were a great source of amusement. You can get some enjoyment out of it in small doses, but just don't expect it to be troubling the list of best racing games at the year's end. Monster Energy Supercross is available now on Xbox One, PS4, Switch and PC. Playing it this week has got us in the mood to go back and revisit some classic off-road bike races. Here's our favourite 5. Enduro Racer, 1986. Released in the arcades when Sega were enjoying one of their best periods, arriving between Space Harrier and Super Hang-On, Enduro Racer might not be as well known today, but that doesn't mean it's not a great game too. My first look at the game came via the surprisingly excellent Spectrum version, but for the full experience nothing beats the Deluxe Arcade original. The cabinet featured a full-size bike to sit on as you play, leaning around corners, pulling the handlebars towards yourself to wheelie, and get bigger air off the jumps. There may only be 5 stages to race through, but it's as well designed and addictive as you'd expect from Sega, with a typically hummable soundtrack. We'd say it's about time that this one got the Sega Ages treatment. Excitebike 64, 2001. Nintendo's Excitebike was a classic 2D racer with brilliantly challenging gameplay, and what's great about Excitebike 64 is how, despite the change to 3D, the essence of the original is still present. If you want to win races and set good lap times, then it isn't enough to just know the track. You'll have to learn how to take every ramp as well. Going flat out isn't always going to be the best option, and nailing the flow of a perfect lap brought with it an incredible sense of satisfaction. In addition to the career mode, it also featured a number of excellent mini-games, including a challenging hill climb, an endless randomly generated desert with bonfires to locate, and a version of soccer played on bikes, long before Rocket League had even been dreamt about. There's also a version of the original NES game that you can unlock as the icing on the cake. Freakstyle 2002. EA successfully introduced a new style of extreme sports game via the EA Sports Big range, and Freakstyle did the same thing for bike races that SSX had done for the snowboard game. Just like that game, the tracks here are wild with multiple routes and shortcuts to discover. The tricks are outlandish but easy enough for the novice to pull off, and the soundtrack is packed with new metal. While the game was smoother and better looking on GameCube, the PS version had better controls, but either way they both suffered from a lack of decent multiplayer options. Don't let this put you off though, as a single player racer is great fun and a real challenge, requiring real finger dexterity to completely fill your trick book. It's a real shame that this one never got a sequel. Pure 2008. Not all off-road biking is of the two-wheeled variety, and there's been a long list of ATV and quad races too. By far the best though, and arguably the best game on this list, is Pure from the sadly defunct BlackRock studio. Races take place in a nice variety of locations, and whether you're tearing across sand dunes or around tricky mountain trails, it always looks spectacular. What makes it great is that the game forces you to balance your desire to look cool against your need to go faster, as the level of tricks you can pull off is determined by the amount of boost you have in the tank. You'll always want to push yourself and go for new stunts in risky locations, and every crash is generally your own fault, but this only makes you want to keep playing and get better at it. Motocross Madness 2013. Motocross Madness was a soft reboot of a decade-old PC game, although the original was more grounded in realism than this arcade-style take. In a genius move, this new version allowed you to play as your Xbox avatar, although this was mainly to incorporate the Avatar FameStar reward system, where you could unlock new clothing and accessories by playing well. What it also meant is that you could bring a bit of your own personality to the game. Whether you're racing around one of the 9 shortcut-laden tracks, or searching the free roam areas for hidden collectibles, it's great to see your own character hanging onto the bike for dear life as it sails through the air. It was released on Xbox Live Arcade for less than £10, and is actually more enjoyable than many games at 4 times the price. Now it's time for this week's reviews. Originally conceived as a standalone expansion for Sniper Elite 2, Rebellion's Zombie Army series is now 7 years old and maturing nicely with its 4th outing. Maturing as much as any game that features a zombie shark can, anyway. Zombie Army 4 Dead War is a co-op focused shooter for up to 4 players, where you fight your way through Europe in an alternative version of World War II where Hitler has raised an army of the undead. The Left 4 Dead influences are obvious, as each level even has its own spoof movie poster and title just like Valve's classic, but fortunately it suits the pulpy comic book tone well. Level design is great, with many secrets to be found if you decide to explore, and there's always new and interesting ways to dispatch the zombies, including the X-ray shots from the Sniper Elite series. Special enemies appear from time to time too, which help to keep the game interesting, and you're never in one location long enough for things to get boring. If you can bring a few friends along for the ride, then this is an extremely entertaining way to kill a few hours. We've played games set in dystopian futures before, but 7th Sector is a little different to all the others. You control a faceless shadow, who begins the game trapped inside the city's electrical grid, and after escaping in the static of a TV screen, you can travel around using the various electricity cables and equipment dotted around. This essentially means you spend most of your time controlling a single spark, guiding yourself along wires, and every few screens you'll be required to solve a puzzle by taking over a control panel or machine. While these puzzles generally have a clue that can be found somewhere in the environment, we have found a couple that don't, and unless you're on the same wavelength as the developers, it can severely hamper your progress. The game also has a great sense of atmosphere. While the puzzles are very much at the forefront, there's always something interesting going on in the backgrounds as well, making you want to keep playing. If you were a fan of Playdead's Inside, then this is certainly one you should check out as well. Patapon II comes from a series that sounds terrible, no matter how you try to describe it to someone new. Then when you get them to play it, they truly understand how brilliant it is. It's essentially a rhythm game and strategy hybrid, where you order your troops into battle by bashing out commands on a drum in time to a beat. Originally released for the PSP, it was perfectly suited to the handheld gaming, although the brand new remaster on PS4 is still just as much fun as ever. A 4K upgrade might seem like a bit of a waste for the game's basic visuals, but it makes them look cleaner and crisper than ever. It might take newcomers a few levels before they begin to grasp the different strategies that you have at your disposal, but once it clicks you won't want to stop playing. Like the Loco Roco games before it, Patapon is definitely not a game for everyone, but we loved it, and if you give it a chance, hopefully you will too. If you've played any of the new games this week, let us know what you think. Now though, would you kindly come with us to talk about a game that was released a decade ago this week? Arriving on February the 9th, 2010 was Bioshock II, a sequel that many people felt at the time wasn't needed, but the change to a new developer managed to include some new ideas and produce a more than worthy successor. It placed you in the role of a Big Daddy, one of the memorable antagonists of the original, in a story that took place 10 years after the events of the first game. The underwater city of Rapture is still one of the most well-realised locations in gaming, even if there are inevitably fewer surprises. Exploring some of the new areas tells you even more about the city's history, and the undercover sections are particularly eerie. Fortunately, the gameplay is as good as the first, allowing you to experiment with your weapons and powers, and it even has a new, even more formidable enemy in the shape of the Big Sister. These are powerful, fast-moving and deadly, and your encounters with them are never less than memorable. We'll have a video of the game's opening 20 minutes coming up on our channel this weekend. Be sure to look out for it. That brings this week's show to an end. We hope you enjoyed it. If there are any off-road racing games you enjoyed and you feel we left out, please let us know in the comments. We'll be back next week with another show just like this one, where we'll take a look at Media Molecule's Dreams, among others. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss it. If you want to know what we're currently playing and talking about, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at UKGN Network. Until next time, thanks for listening, see you soon.